The bookshop on Maple Street closed at midnight, but Caleb Mercer always arrived at 11. He wore faded jeans and an old sweater, nothing that suggested the $3 billion sitting in his accounts. His beard had grown deliberately untrimmed and his glasses were plain black frames that changed his angular face into something forgettable. This was the only hour he felt human. The bell chimed as he entered and Priya Sharma looked up from behind the counter. Her dark hair was pulled back in a messy bun and reading glasses perched on her nose. A worn notebook lay open before her, filled with handwriting he had glimpsed but never read. "You are back." She smiled and the warmth of it hit him somewhere deep. "Same time, same sweater." Caleb shrugged. Creatures of habit. He wandered to the poetry section as he always did. The shop was empty this late, just dusty shelves and the smell of old paper and the soft music Priya played from a speaker behind the register. He could hear her pen scratching against the notebook. For 3 months he had been coming here. 3 months of brief exchanges that somehow meant more to him than any business negotiation or board meeting. Priya never asked what he did for work. Never tried to impress him or extract anything. She simply talked to him like he was ordinary. He did not know how to explain what that meant to someone who had never been truly seen. "Find anything good tonight?" Priya called from the counter. Caleb pulled a slim volume from the shelf and walked over. "Pablo Neruda. You recommended him last week. And did you read him?" "Every night." Caleb set the book down between them. "He writes about loneliness like he lived inside it." Priya's eyes softened. Most great poets did. There is something about isolation that makes people pay attention to the small beautiful things. "Is that why you write?" She looked surprised that he remembered. She had mentioned her poetry only once, weeks ago, almost embarrassed. "I write because I cannot stop." She laughed quietly. "The words come whether I want them to or not. Mostly I write about my grandmother. About watching someone you love disappear slowly." "She is sick." Priya nodded. "Alzheimer's. Some days she knows me. Some days I am a stranger in her room. I moved back here to take care of her but the medical bills are drowning us." Caleb felt something twist in his chest. "I am sorry." "Everyone is sorry." Priya smiled but it did not reach her eyes. "Sorry does not pay for medication." He wanted to tell her he could solve that problem with a single phone call. That her grandmother could have the best care in the country by tomorrow morning. But that would require revealing who he was and then everything would change. So instead he bought the Neruda book and lingered at the counter longer than necessary. "Why do you always come so late?" Priya asked. "Most customers want daylight." Caleb considered the question. "Because at midnight the world expects nothing from you. No meetings. No obligations. Just quiet." "That sounds lonely." "It is." He met her eyes and something passed between them. An understanding that needed no words. But lonely is safer than the alternative. Priya studied him for a long moment. "What happened to you?" The question was gentle. Not prying. Just curious. "People always want something from me," Caleb said carefully. "When they find out who I am they change. They see dollar signs instead of a person." "So you hide." "So I hide." Priya reached across the counter and touched his hand. Her fingers were warm and soft against his skin. "For what it is worth you seem like a real person to me. Whoever you are underneath that disguise." Caleb felt his heart stutter. "What makes you think this is a disguise?" She smiled knowingly. "Because you are wearing a sweater that costs $500 and pretending it came from a thrift store. The stitching gave you away." He laughed, genuinely laughed, for the first time in months. "Maybe years. You are too observant for your own good. Occupational hazard of being a poet. We notice everything." The clock above the register struck midnight. Priya sighed and reached for her keys. Closing time. Same time tomorrow night. Caleb nodded and walked toward the door. At the threshold he paused. Priya. What would you do if you met someone who could solve all your problems but you did not know if you could trust them? She considered the question seriously. I would ask myself whether their help came with strings attached. And whether the cost of accepting was worth the price of my dignity. And if there were no strings, then I would wonder what they wanted in return. Because nobody gives something for nothing. Caleb stepped into the cold night air carrying those words with him. She was right, of course. Nobody gave something for nothing. But for the first time in his life he wanted to. Caleb returned every night for the next 2 months. He and Priya developed a rhythm, conversations that stretched past midnight into the early hours. She would close the register and they would sit on the floor between shelves sharing stories like teenagers. Priya told him about her childhood in Mumbai. How her grandmother had raised her after her parents died in a car accident. How they immigrated to America with nothing but 2 suitcases and endless hope. How her grandmother worked 3 jobs so Priya could attend university. Now I work 3 jobs so she can have medicine. Priya laughed bitterly. The circle of life. Caleb shared pieces of himself carefully. His lonely childhood in a mansion where servants outnumbered family. Parents who measured love in trust funds and obligations. A brother who died young, leaving Caleb sole heir to an empire he never wanted. He told her everything except his name. His real name. One night Priya read him her poetry. Her voice trembled as she spoke words about loss and memory and watching someone fade like photographs left in sunlight. Caleb listened with his heart aching. These are beautiful, he said when she finished. They are sad. Beautiful things often are. She looked at him with those dark eyes that saw too much. You understand that? I can tell. I understand loss. He admitted. I understand building walls so high that nobody can climb them. Priya reached over and took his hand. Her fingers intertwined with his like they belonged there. Maybe some walls are meant to come down. Caleb wanted to kiss her. Wanted to tell her everything. But fear held him frozen. The next week Priya missed 2 shifts. Caleb panicked until he overheard the daytime clerk mention that her grandmother had been hospitalized. The nursing home was threatening eviction over unpaid bills. That night Caleb made a phone call. The next morning every debt connected to Priya Sharma and her grandmother was erased. The nursing home received an anonymous donation covering 5 years of care. Her apartment landlord received 6 months' rent in advance. Caleb watched from across the street as Priya arrived home to find a letter explaining that an anonymous benefactor had intervened. She stood on her doorstep reading it over and over, tears streaming down her face. He should have felt good. Instead he felt sick with guilt. When she came to work that night her eyes were red but shining. Something impossible happened. She told him breathlessly. Someone paid everything. My grandmother can stay. I do not have to choose between food and medicine anymore. That is wonderful. Caleb managed. I do not understand who would do this. Why would a stranger help me? Because you deserve it. The words came out before he could stop them. Sometimes people want to do good things without expecting anything in return. Priya studied him with that piercing gaze. You sound like you know something. I know that the world has more kindness in it than we expect. She accepted that answer, but something flickered in her expression. A question she did not ask. Caleb knew his time was running out. 3 weeks later Priya discovered the truth. She was organizing the magazine rack when she saw his face staring back at her. Caleb Mercer. Tech billionaire. Recluse worth $3.2 billion. The article discussed his mysterious disappearance from public life and speculation about his whereabouts. The photo showed him clean-shaven and polished, but those eyes were unmistakable. Priya felt the floor tilt beneath her feet. That night when Caleb walked through the door, she was waiting with the magazine in her hands. His face went pale. "I can explain." "Can you?" Her voice shook with anger and hurt. "Can you explain why you lied to me for 4 months? Why you pretended to be someone ordinary while I poured my heart out to you? I never lied about who I am. You lied about everything." She threw the magazine at him. "You are a billionaire, Caleb. You let me cry about my grandmother's bills while you could have solved them with pocket change." "I did solve them." The words landed like a bomb. "What?" "The anonymous benefactor. That was me." Priya staggered backward. "You paid my debts. I wanted to help you. You wanted to control me." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "You bought my life and let me think the universe was being kind. Do you understand how manipulative that is? I was trying to protect you." "From what?" "From knowing that the man I was falling for was lying every single night." Caleb felt his heart crack open. "You were falling for me. Does it matter now?" Priya grabbed her coat. "Everything between us was built on deception. I do not know what was real anymore." "Everything was real." Caleb stepped toward her desperately. "Every conversation, every moment, every feeling. The only thing I hid was my money. Money changes everything. You know that. That is why you hid it." She pushed past him toward the door. "Priya, please. Do not come back here." She did not turn around. "I need time to figure out if anything between us was genuine or just another rich man playing games with ordinary people." The door slammed behind her and Caleb stood alone in the empty bookshop, surrounded by stories about love and loss. He had become both. 3 weeks passed in silence. Caleb wrote Priya a letter every day. Not texts or emails, but handwritten pages explaining everything he could not say aloud. He wrote about his brother David, who died at 17, leaving Caleb alone in a family that did not know how to grieve. About parents who responded to loss by working harder and expecting more. About inheriting billions at 22 and watching every relationship become transactional. He wrote about the first time someone recognized him at a coffee shop and how the barista's smile changed when she realized who he was. How he started hiding after that. Wearing disguises. Avoiding public spaces. Building walls so high he forgot there was a world outside them. He wrote about walking into her bookshop and feeling something crack open inside him. How her smile made him believe that maybe someone could see him, not his money. He wrote about being terrified and selfish and wrong. On the 21st day Priya appeared at his door. His mansion was enormous and empty. Marble floors echoed with every footstep. Art hung on walls that nobody looked at. Rooms filled with furniture that nobody used. Priya walked through it slowly, taking in the loneliness that lived in every corner. "This is where you live. This is where I exist." Caleb stood in the doorway watching her. "Living requires actually feeling things." She turned to face him. Her eyes were red and tired, but something had softened in them. "I read your letters. All of them. And I think you are the loneliest person I have ever met." Caleb felt tears burn his eyes. "I am." Priya crossed the room and took his hands. Her fingers were warm and real, and he held onto them like lifelines. "I was so angry," she whispered. "I felt manipulated and deceived. But then I thought about every conversation we had. Every moment in that bookshop. And I realized you were not playing games. You were hiding because you did not know how else to survive. I should have told you the truth." "Yes. You should have. But I understand why you did not." She reached up and touched his face. His beard had grown wilder in the weeks apart. His eyes were hollow with sleeplessness. "I missed you. she said softly. I missed you every single day. Then stop hiding from me. She kissed him and Caleb felt 3 decades of walls crumble. He pulled her close and kissed her back with everything he had been holding inside. All the loneliness and longing and desperate hope. They made their way upstairs to a bedroom that had never felt like anything but empty. But with Priya in his arms it transformed into something sacred. He undressed her slowly, reverently, memorizing every curve and shadow. I have never done this, she admitted quietly. Never been with anyone. Caleb paused, his heart swelling. Then we will go slowly. As slow as you need. She nodded and pulled him closer. Just be gentle. He was. He worshipped her body like poetry, taking his time until she trembled beneath him. When they finally joined together she gasped and he held her through the intensity, whispering that he loved her. Afterward they lay tangled in sheets that finally felt like home. I love you, Caleb said into her hair. Not because you accept my money. Because you see me. I love you too. Priya pressed a kiss to his chest. The real you. Not the billionaire. Just the man who reads Neruda at midnight. Morning light filled the bedroom and Caleb woke to find Priya watching him. You look peaceful when you sleep, she said softly. Less haunted. He pulled her closer. I feel peaceful for the first time in years. They spent the day talking about everything and nothing. Walking through his empty mansion and imagining how to fill it with warmth. Cooking together in a kitchen that had never been used. That evening Caleb sat Priya down with a serious expression. I have been thinking about the future. That sounds ominous. He shook his head. I want to stop hiding. Go public with who I am. Face the world instead of running from it. Why now? Because I want you in my life. Caleb took her hands. Really in my life. Not secret midnight meetings and disguises. I want to take you to dinner and hold your hand on the street and introduce you to people as the woman I love. Priya was quiet for a long moment. You do not have to change everything for me. I want to, he said firmly. I have been invisible for so long that I forgot what living feels like. You reminded me. She squeezed his fingers. I do not need you to become famous. I do not need galas and photographers. I just need you. Honest and present and real. What are you saying? I am saying we do this our way. She smiled. Slowly. Carefully. You do not have to announce yourself to the world tomorrow. Just stop hiding from me. Stop hiding from yourself. Caleb felt tears spill down his cheeks. I can do that. And I want to keep working at the bookshop. Priya laughed. Even if I do not need the money anymore. That place is part of who I am. I would never ask you to give it up. She kissed him softly. Then we are going to be okay. 1 year later they married in the bookshop on Maple Street. Priya wore a simple white dress and flowers in her hair. Caleb wore the same faded sweater from their first meeting. The guest list was small. Priya's grandmother attended on her good day, smiling without quite understanding. A few trusted friends filled the narrow aisles between shelves. The officiant asked for vows and Caleb spoke first. 1 year ago I walked into this shop trying to be invisible. You saw me anyway. You saw past the disguise and the money and the walls. You saw the loneliness I could not hide and you loved me through it. I promised to spend the rest of my life being visible to you. Honest and present and real. Priya wiped her eyes and smiled. 1 year ago a strange man in an expensive sweater interrupted my writing. He asked me about loneliness like he lived inside it. I did not know he was hiding an empire. I only knew he was hiding a wounded heart. I promised to keep seeing you. The man beneath the money. The poet who reads Neruda at midnight. My home. They exchanged rings and kissed while books stood witness around them. Outside the world continued spinning with its demands and expectations. But inside the little shop on Maple Street, two people had found something rare. Not invisibility. Connection.